Can we start, please, Jeannie? Okay, I'd like to call the Academy Community Center Building Committee to order. This is a meeting on Tuesday, May 28th. And I have the agenda here in front of me, and that's the first thing is the call to order. The second thing I have is the approval of minutes.
I'll move to approve.
They were distributed. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
On item 11, the third line where it says 3.56 million, is that supposed to be 3.586?
I wasn't here, so I can't, I don't want to answer.
Going off the spreadsheet, John, right?
You got your spreadsheet?
We were marked, we're copying things off.
Yep.
3.586, correct.
We need to make that.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I abstained, by the way, I wasn't here at the last meeting. The next is the chair's comments. And I have a couple of things here. I noticed there are a couple additional things that were handed out before I got here. Two things that I'd like to be sure we schedule for the next meeting. The first is the facilities recommendations memo dated May 21st. There are about 40, I think it is 40 changes or suggestions that we incorporate into the final design. Those have been discussed with facilities and I believe with someone from your area, Tom. Okay, and they have not been reviewed by the committee. They were, even though it was available or dated the 21st, it was not available to the committee. And that is, so I'd like to schedule that for a detailed discussion of that for our next meeting. Tom, are you familiar with the document I'm talking about?
I think so. This document?
It's this, I did bring a copy. It's that one.
Okay, I know Brian's been working with Felicia and her team on these items, so.
Okay. For the next time, if someone wants to record, definitely record this. We'd like to know which, if any, for each of these changes, what are the cost deltas against the current design? What are the schedule deltas versus the current design? What is the overall, or what is the impact of abatement? Will additional lead or asbestos or other hazardous be abated, or would they be encapsulated? With the emphasis on, I would prefer, with the emphasis on, we'd have to discuss the difference between an abated or an encapsulated area.
Joe, do we have that document now?
No,
I was gonna say, I have an email from you saying this
yes,
one's coming, but I don't
there's
have.
one, this is the one that's coming. And Peggy, it was ready, I think, just as we were doing the agenda, and Peggy wanted to put a cover letter on it. And I don't know what else she wanted to do, but she wanted to make put a cover letter on it before it went to the committee. It also with 40 changes, some of them very detailed. I did not want to do that, have that discussed. I didn't want to try to rush that and have that discussed at this meeting, as opposed to having a couple of weeks to be able to review it, each of us to review it. And also for, probably more importantly, for QAM to review it, or Colliers, whomever is involved, to be sure we know the cost, schedule, and other related changes that it would be impacted by making these changes.
So what is the process, Joe? Does the facilities department send a memo to our committee with their recommendations?
I think if you look at it, I think it went to Peggy.
Okay, then it would come to us.
It would, and then she was going to forward it to, or she will forward it to us. But it was the holiday weekend and she was
Oh, that's
also,
fine.
she was also out
Yeah,
of town.
that's fine. No, I just didn't know what the process is in general.
Yeah, I think this is, I'm not sure this is the standard process, but this is what was communicated to me as what we should be doing.
And it
Maybe
was-
Joan, you could.
Yeah, it was also in the last Board of Selectmen meeting that this was forthcoming and that they would be kind of an overview of what they're looking for to make sure that this facility is in line with what's happening with other buildings in the town and things like that. So
Right.
that's,
That's actually a separate, that's another thing. I don't think that's in this.
oh, okay. And so so they said that there would be a memo coming out that included that and then Youth and Family Services.
Yeah, Madison, that's the other part of this is Madison, the biggest changes, there are some changes in the space allocations for Madison Youth and Family Services. And that was still being discussed even as of Friday or so when we put this memo together, when we put the agenda together. So I don't know if that's going to require any action on our part. I've seen some drafts, but I haven't seen what the final would be. So it looks as though it's reverting back to the original designs, the original designs. So I don't know what kind of action we have until I see those changes.
I mean, does this come to us, then go to Colliers for their review and provide guidance to the committee on recommendations? I mean, especially if we're potentially dealing with design changes along that we've already have approved and have paid for.
So may I just,
Sure,
as
go
the
ahead,
person who
please.
drafted this memo, so this memo was the result of our walkthrough. So the architects are, aware of all of this. We were instructed directly by the first select woman to issue this memo and she would be distributing it to you. So it is not us trying to, supersede anything you decided on, but this is direct instructions by the first select woman for us to offer our professional opinion as to the design selections in the building. None of them are meant to add money to it. All of them are meant to either save money or be in line with what is currently designed, but more sensitive to the current historic and existing materials of the building. As a point of clarification, I think the facilities department would like to know, we were under the impression that it was a full abatement of the building. There was no encapsulation because for us, encapsulation presents a very serious complication down the line if we were to ever to have to go in and make further renovations to this building or repairs. So we were under the impression that it was going to be fully abated for the amount that was specified in the original budget.
I just wanted, and what I said originally here was to make sure that none of these changes, none of the suggestions would change that fully abated. Although I'm not sure fully abated. I don't know what the definition of fully abated is. And I don't think we want to discuss that here.
Well, I mean, in terms of things that are federally regulated, which right now would be lead and asbestos, we would like those to be fully abated. I think the only thing on there that I would see as a cost potential is hallways in terrazzo, which is, a $2 increase square footage wise, and Kelly is familiar with that. So I did rate that with very much budgetary things in mind, so don't think it's us trying to change, but as the department that will be maintaining this building for multiple decades for the future of the town, we feel that these are important cost implication design changes that are on the memo.
And this is and what I think the committee needs is verification, especially on the cost. Because the heating and cooling systems changed. And I don't know, I'm not as familiar with those as I am with some of the others. So I don't know what the upfront costs of those heating and cooling system changes have, if they add or subtract from the cost of the building.
Right.
Upfront costs.
We did discuss this with the first select woman, although they might be upfront costs a little bit more, for the back end costs of yearly maintenance and utility costs on this, you are saving quite a lot. You switch to the systems that Peter Anderson has taken great pains to recommend.
And that, we need to know what that, we need to know what the effect of that is. That's why we're asking the architect and who's doing the cost estimates to be able to give us an estimate line by line if we have to. I imagine that would be the way to do it, because that would influence if we approve or not approve each of these changes.
Tom, I don't know, so, sorry. I think a line by line cost estimate for all of those would be onerous. I think between our knowledge and the facilities team, I think we can have an offline discussion about what one for ones can be done. But as I said, most of those suggestions are one by one suggestions, one for one suggestions. So I don't think there needs to be a full cost of estimating practice done on this. Especially since you've done one for DD and CD. But
In other words,
we can.
I mean, the committee is under a lot of cost pressure. We've been under cost pressure from day one, from schematic design. And I'm sorry, I can't accept a change that would add significantly to upfront costs, even if there were later savings, because that's not what we're charged with. We're charged with operating to a budget.
That's a different memo?
Think.
There's two separate things, there's
No,
one.
there's one.
Oh, that's in there too, is the change of the HVAC system and the 40 other things?
Well, it's part of the 40.
Okay. I thought it was separate. Okay.
It is separate, it's a separate
I think we
it's
can
subject.
get the document and read it
Yes.
individually.
Right.
I think
Yep,
once we
And
all
that's what
read
we're
it,
doing.
and then also.
We might be on board.
There might be a bunch of things that can be grouped together rather than one item and one item, one-to-one
That's
kind of thing. The other thing is we have to recognize that for quite a long time, we did not have facilities with us until the new team was put in place. And so many of these things that could have happened earlier did not. We were flying fairly blind at that point in time.
Right.
So I'm glad that we've got this at this point, rather than, we're already out to bid and things are changing. So, we are at a point in time where these can be potentially incorporated. But, I think one of the things we've got, and, we've all been under the same pressure. We're trying to get to a 15.9 budget. And so we need to see what that means for the rest of how these changes would impact the rest of what we've already approved under the 15.9.
And line by line might be a little draconian, but certainly the impact of the, if there are certain groups, as Joan mentioned, we would need to know the impact.
And we want to thank you guys for
Yes.
joining in now, because it is, everyone has different expertise on this.
And as being the only
You
one,
guys are in it.
as being the only one to see it, I have to thank you. There's a lot of work went into that and a lot of thought. But again, we've been under pressure from schematic design to meet a budget.
Peter, just as the liaison for facilities ahead of me, can we just to re-clarify our charge as we were asked by the first select woman and why we were asked to produce this memo? I just think it would be helpful for the building committee to hear that part as well.
Hi, Peter.
Oh, yes, okay, so yeah, I caught half and half. I had a dog running by me. I just got off the highway. Sorry. Yeah, so we were asked to step up to put our input in regards to giving our skills and knowledge towards future planning for the building. So Peggy wanted us to get involved in regards to what it's going to be to do the maintenance of the building, what we're going to do with the new budget that's going to have, because the heating system is not going to be reliant on geo anymore. We're going to be focusing on an all electric system, which I've asked them to alter and come up with a price of what would be kind of a standard go-to system for a building such as that, which is a combination of gas-fired DOA units, which are units on the roof, in combination with VRF units, which are the electrical component of the building, so that we can, if we were ever to have a really massive cold winter, we don't have to worry so much about not being able to properly heat the building, or if it was a really hot summer, not being able to properly cool the building, given the fact that there's not a lot of insulation in there. It also provides a little bit more airflow, and you've got a filtered airflow system with direct outside air units in combination with rooftop units. The RTUs, or rooftop units, are much better designed for larger areas, and they're a little bit more economical than all electric. So this was the some of the input that I was given charge to provide for you folks.
And thank you. I certainly appreciate, especially the changes in this. Well, the thing that I first noticed was the hot water system. An all-electric hot water system is not would not be economical, and it's this is, you're talking about a gas-fired.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Condensing boiler. So that's that's kind of an easy one. But the rest, we're under pressure to keep the initial cost down, and we just need to know what that is. If there are significant cost increases, I don't know if we'd be able to approve them. If there are some minor cost increases, then there are things we might be able to do in other areas, but it's not, upfront cost is an issue to us.
Well, when the engineer who selected the proposed unit, right, they use some sort of cost basis, right? I would assume when they selected the unit, correct? It may not be the 100% most efficient, but makes the most sense for this use of the building. So I think we'd like to hear from the engineer too. Do we have a document from them on reviewing the proposals from the town? Or they haven't made it there yet?
Well, you guys are jumping around a little bit in the minutes, but our engineer has reviewed this and takes no exception to providing the system as indicated. I don't know if I agree wholeheartedly with all of the recommendations by the facilities department, but I do agree that the system they're proposing, and that's facilities department, is tried and true and very durable and will meet the needs that the facilities department would like to see, and what the facilities department thinks are the better interest of Madison's facility. So our design team takes no exception to it. I think it's a good system, but they need a decision on that change before they can move forward with any of the documentation, because we've already been directed to go down one path in the VD phase. So this does represent a bit of a sort of a, I don't want to say a detour. I don't think it's a
Well, so you're
significant
getting a
problem.
change order.
It's
in
a
the middle of
change
middle of the
in
design.
It's a change in the design approach. I don't know what that means. Honestly, I haven't been approached by my team about that, my consultant team about that, but at this time, I'm not aware of any significant impact in terms of our agreement. But before we go and draw this, I need the building committee to direct us to do it this way.
So is Kohler Berlin, which is the document.
Back to your point though, we're not following the agenda because
Yeah,
I think we're all
Yeah.
still under
Right.
chair
Yes.
comments, which is.
We're in the church comment. We're a little.
So I mean, let's.
We're a
yeah.
little deeper in here then. So I guess I'd like to, call the end to the chair's comments and note that we will take this up in 2 weeks. And our expectation is that we will have some, he'll have an indication either line by line or in groups, what the upfront cost delta is.
Do we have, reasoning from the facilities department as well as to why they're making these changes? So when we are doing evaluation.
I think we need to,
I haven't seen it.
I think we need to get to that next week, or next meeting. That'll be the discussion for next
I
week.
think we need the document along with the requested changes first.
I really believe it.
Well, I'd
Everybody,
like to know the requested changes and why the changes requested. If that makes sense.
You brought these papers out. Is this for tonight?
That's for Tom's QAM's comment.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
okay,
So some of this is for tonight. Okay.
okay,
Yes.
okay. Liaison reports. Al, you would come up first. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
I think we're just, we, the selectmen are just urging this committee to keep pushing forward and, carry out, the original charge. We're very eager to, see the process move onward and, get to the point where we can actually get some bids back and see what this thing's really gonna cost. So I guess the message is carry on.
Yeah, I think all of us feel that way. I don't think we had a vote. I don't think anybody voted no on that one. But thank you, Al. Art, and liaison comments, did you want to just introduce yourself?
Yes, I did. Thanks very much for the opportunity. I just wanted to introduce myself to the group. My name's Art Sickle. Excuse me, I'm the technology director for the town and the school district. I've been here, we talked about this with Joe earlier. I've been here about 23 years now. I've been through a few building projects and I just wanted to make sure, I don't know exactly where everyone is in the process here, but I want to make sure that the technology department is included at the appropriate time. And I wanted to put a name and a face to, the tech department, excuse me. We've been involved in the new school construction project from pretty early on, and I'm not sure at what point you're planning to bring us in, but there's certainly a lot of network connectivity within the building. There's going to be network connectivity to the rest of our metropolitan area network. And, of course, you've got other equipment that would be expected, whether it be audiovisual equipment, if that's part of your FF&E, or I'm not sure when you're going to be doing the cabling, but we'd certainly love to have some input on that. So I figured I might as well just come on in and introduce myself. My office is right here in this building. And I gave some of my business cards to Joe, and you'll see I'm the Director of Administrative Services, which includes technology, food services, and school bus transportation. But we do have we have a couple of network folks, so I'd like to make sure we get involved. And certainly we want to do so in a way that's consistent with our current network topology. So I wanted to say hello and introduce myself and ask you to don't forget us when it's time to make some of those decisions about what that's going to look like. So appreciate the moment.
Well, thank you, Art.
All right, thanks very much. Good luck.
It's also good to have a face associated with the name. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Is there at some point we should do a Wi-Fi analysis of the building before schematics can be done up, or is that something you guys normally handle?
Well, by Wi-Fi, do you mean cellular signal, or do you mean?
Well, I mean, this is a really old building and it's gonna
Yes.
have really difficult radio challenges. We were talking about the repeaters from the police. I imagine computers don't like it either, right?
Well,
So.
To be honest with you, the Academy Street School, when I started here, that was still a functioning school. And it was the first building that we implemented any Wi-Fi in at all. And it was done, quite in what would now be considered quite a primitive way. But there were lots of building material issues and, we weren't going to be running a whole lot of internal cabling. So we did we needed to get a computer in every classroom at that time. So we did put some, early generation and terraces access points in and ran cable that was all surface mount. And I think that it took about 9 APs to cover enough of the classrooms to make that project work. It is a very thick wall construction that's quite difficult to deal with, although the APs now are, we have a standard in the school district and in the town of specific brand that we're dealing with. I think that if we've got enough infrastructure, we can certainly look, it depends on what the building use is gonna be and how many rooms, what locations and that sort of thing, but right now, for instance, I would expect every major space to have at least one access point in it. So I mean, rather than try to design off the cuff here, I think we should consider whether or not we're looking to do anything to improve on cell signal, or if we want to try and, which would require some other expensive things that you may not have been thinking about, or maybe you are, I'm not sure, some kind of a distributed antenna system in the building. That could get very costly. It may very well be just a standard Wi-Fi implementation, but
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, yes,
We'll get a lot.
you're more than welcome to give me a call and we can talk about that offline. And also, if you wanted to try and get some sort of a survey, I don't think the building's in any condition to do it right now, but
Yeah.
yeah, at some point, we need to strategically figure out how and when. Thank you.
Peter,
Pardon me?
Peter, Felicia, do you have,
No.
do you have anything else to add other than what we've already talked about?
As liaisons.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Joe, did you, I missed that question.
You're the only Peter. Joe's are a little bit problematic, but Peter's and John's too, but Peter seems to be okay. That's you.
It's okay. Did Felicia, did she review her, because I came in late, did she review part of the memo with you guys? Has that been done, or is that part farther on?
We've put that off until the committee actually has a
Gotcha.
chance to review it and have any questions for you, for Felicia.
Gotcha. No problem.
And that'll be at our next meeting, which is in
No,
about 2
yeah, no
weeks.
problem. Again, I just got back from Newport, so sorry.
Folk festival, is that just the folk festival?
No, wife's birthday, so.
Oh.
Excuse me, Joe, just to clarify, Peter, the memo has not been formally released or issued.
Gotcha. Okay, no problem.
Lady's office, so
It'll be released.
we have not
after
all
the
seen that yet.
So if I could just tag on to that, the first select woman has requested that I think we're setting up a field trip, a design field trip, Thursday morning to go visit the Old Saybrook Town Hall and Cape, as well as two buildings that are very similar to the purpose and vintage of that building. She wanted to see, she wanted to learn from how they were renovated to perhaps fold into this. So Peter will be going to that. And then in terms of how we want to review the memo next week, I think it's helpful if you all see that. I have, to AJ's point, I'm happy to discuss any of the suggestions as to why they're recommended, either financially, for ease of use, for, historical importance, all of those. I also have a cache of about 200 photos that I took recently of every single finish and room in the building, as well as John has forwarded me a cache of photos from pre-referendum. And that's mainly to speak to the first items on the memo, which is just to restate our continued structural concerns, and that every time we go into the building, it seems to be in worse shape than the last time we were in it. So just want to have full eyes open for your budgeting purposes that needs to be fully accounted for. So again, however you want to review that memo, Peter and I are here to offer our insight as to why, and these are recommendations from the facilities committee. Again, we were asked by the first select woman to review the design set and make our recommendations based on our professional expertise. So that's what this is. Again, we realize that this building committee has full purview over it. And we're coming in late to get a game, but we were asked to offer our assistance, and that's what we did.
Okay, thank you. The invoice packet. Yes, I've seen it.
I would move to approve the invoice.
Second. Any discussion?
It's in line. We double checked your mileage.
I checked the rate too, make sure.
Reads it right. I was like, which meetings were?
We have a,
We have a motion in a second.
who made the motion?
I did and you seconded.
Okay, well, the person who did the motion should,
No, no,
should
you
call the
always,
question.
as the chair, you move to.
Oh, the chair does it.
Yes.
Jeez. Can we call the question and vote?
So I move to approve the invoices as presented for a
All-
total of $20,412.72. Thank you.
All in favor?
And I
Aye.
have it all.
Aye.
Aye.
There are no budget line item transfers.
Nobody, okay. Collier's update, but I would like to just right a wrong that I've done several times is I sign these and then I take them home. And I'm supposed to hand them over to the selectman's office. So I'm gonna go to take this minute to sign, put the sign piece into the hands of the people who have it.
This is where she fills out the check.
Oh, it's not,
Does that.
it's not being, our payment's not being made in cash?
No, Venmo.
Takes 3% out. John, Collier's, and any update from Collier?
Just briefly, I know Tom has a number of things he's gonna go over, so I won't be long. I did send an email late this afternoon after receiving an update from Fuss and O'Neill. I'm not sure if everyone saw that prior to the meeting, but Aaron from Fuss and O'Neill did send an email noting that the town has asked them to proceed with the additional monitoring services. So that is going to be also paid for through the DECD Brownsfield assessment grant. So it is not something that will be impacting the budget project costs. So I just wanted to share that. And again, that was sent out just before the meeting, so you should have a copy of that if you haven't seen it already.
And John, I don't have a lot of confidence in Fuss and O'Neill. It's dated, this is dated January 28th.
Well,
Is that the real date?
that's their original proposal, yes. It's referencing that scope of work, which is now being requested to be pursued.
So they date the letter January 28th.
That was when it was
That's
originally
what it was,
submitted.
that was the original supply, and then we had to approve this going forward, but we didn't have to because it came out of the ground.
The cost might have changed though.
She has not indicated that the cost.
Okay.
Do we want to
I'll
explain to
verify
the
that.
public what this is about so that people understand it?
Probably discussed it
Good.
at length at a previous meeting.
Just a quick synopsis for the people who are listening tonight, if they haven't gone
Sure.
back and listened to the.
Yes,
Sure, John, could you do that, please?
The,
That's a good
it's-
request.
The provision and installation of additional monitoring of wells on, I believe, is going to be the east side of the site. Just to, again, monitor the water in that area. And it's going to be tested periodically and to assure the contents and composition of the water is acceptable. There are some wells in that area, abutting property. So it's just to monitor that the water conditions in those areas.
Are they not located out in the fields?
I believe there may be, to be honest, I'm not sure specifically locations. I know one was on the side of the building.
I guess my only comment would be if they're in the fields, we just gotta make sure whatever cap is on them, it's not gonna be a tripping hazard for anybody running around.
Right. I can,
Cause there's different caps that go on
on the covers, yes,
the
correct.
covers,
Depending on, yes, where they're located. I'll follow up on
or
that.
drill them deep enough so they're not
Yes.
below.
So little kids, yeah. Or the old.
Well, anybody running around with a kite or anything out there, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
I'll verify that.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything else, John?
No, that's all I have. Joe?
Tom?
Great, so we're in the process of doing the construction documentation. And a number of things are going on that are sort of schedule sensitive. The first of which is the reallocation in the youth and family services layout. I've included tonight two plans, lower level and upper level plan, which is the current state of the revised youth and family services configuration. On the lower level, which is under the stage and gymatorium space, you can see that a number of the youth services offices have been placed down there, have been reallocated to that area the way they were originally sort of allocated. So that space is, my understanding is that space has been agreed upon. The upper level plan, which is on the other side of this document, shows the reduction of the footprint of youth family services as youth services have been moved downstairs, and an increase of the communal multifunction spaces, which are in green. The conversation regarding the layout of this space is still underway. There are a few last items that Peggy and Scott and our design team are still working on. So that process is going on, communication is happening. I will note that at this point, our work has, I don't want to say stopped, but Cole and Ronan won't move forward really until they have a final layout. We have to get a final layout to all of our consultants. So we're working on it and we'll get to a resolve hopefully shortly. So that's underway.
I would like to point out that the committee, our committee isn't involved in these particular layouts. This is a discussion between and among the town offices, and it's particularly for their use. I believe, I'm not sure what we'd have to do to vote on this when it's complete, but it is a change from the last time we approved the plans. But it goes back and harkens very closely to the original plan from the referendum and just afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, again, I wasn't sure in my comment before if there was a process in place when these discussions are completed, there's a memo or something that comes to the committee, with the recommendations for us to review and approve.
Well, my thought process was that once we have a layout that's sort of approved or directed by the conversations that are happening between, internally, administratively, I would present that to the committee, say this is what we're moving forward with based on the town's administrative recommendation. This is what we recommend, you bless.
And again,
No, that's fine.
I think that was we believe we'll have that by our next meeting.
I mean, obviously,
we should, if the changes, the remaining changes are small, and we should have that by our next meeting. So.
Understood. I mean, I think the two big things are schedule and cost impacts, right? Unless that affects our schedule, right? Cost, I don't think we really worry about at this point, right? These seem to be mine. We're not gonna go back to the estimators and have them. That's my thought.
We're going back to the estimators anyways, as a part of the construction document phase. So we're gonna.
You'll capture it then.
It'll be captured.
No problem.
Also in the packet tonight is a site plan. This is the updated site plan showing the relocation of the playscape, the provision of the new parking area. It also demonstrates leaving the baseball field in its current configuration as it does not need to be moved. Just wanted to show this is what the site will look like. I guess the one comment I got from Captain Frost was along the left field line, the foul line comes to within 15 feet of the parking area. So there's a viability that, cars will experience, baseball. But,
Remind me not to park my car there.
yeah, I just wanted to bring this, as an update to your attention. I mean, the field can always be relocated in the future. It's that there's nothing prohibiting that happening. This is just for the committee's information purposes at this point.
So there are currently 2 brand new EV chargers installed on the back of Memorial Hall that with this plan would be completely out of reach.
We will look at the possibility of relocating the EV chargers. We're gonna have to provide EV chargers anyway, part of the solution.
Yeah, so the reason they were there is just because we tapped off the load of the existing building. So if you were to relocate them, perhaps, but I'm just, as somebody who is sensitive to the economic needs of this committee, to make 2 new brand new EV chargers that the town was given via reimbursements obsolete is a problem.
Why
I
would
mean,
they
it sounds
be
like you
made,
could use them. We just have to know.
why would they be made obsolete if we move them?
Well, if you can move them, they're wall mounted, they're not on bollards, they're not on pillars. So they're directly.
And they're at the
wall.
back of which building?
Memorial Town Hall. It's been there for about a year now.
Are there town
Well, it's
guidelines?
the wrong
with respect
circuits.
to
We have lighting out there in the parking lot.
installation of EV charging stations?
In terms of, well, so town guidelines would be that, I mean, they need to be protected from vehicular traffic. So if they're wall mounted, there's bollards in front of them. If they're freestanding like the ones that were just installed in Stop and Shop parking lot, they need to be on those particular pillars, which unfortunately, these are a particular unit that is no longer manufactured, so I don't think you can even get the pillars to convert these. They're Juice Bar, which is now out of business. And then we did do specific line striping for them. That would need to be replicated.
Understood, good point.
What's that?
Oh, I said understood. We'll-
Yeah, so if you wall mount them to somewhere where you can drive up, but I don't know. In this plan, I don't know where you would wall mount them where they would be drivable accessible. That's just something. And like I said, the pillars, the ones that are currently in Stop and Shop, we had to wait a year for those, and those were the last coming off the factory floor before bankruptcy.
They
So
can't just go on
unfortunate.
precast post or something?
I
I mean, we're digging into the weeds here. I mean,
In-
we are.
Yeah, in fairness, we're gonna look at it. I appreciate the notification. It definitely, yeah, we'll take a look at that. Alright, so. Good news.
So
So,
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I wasn't here at the last meeting. Have we determined that who covers the cost of the new, the rebuilt playground?
We discussed that. I don't remember discussing
no,
Do we know?
well,
Has
the
that been?
parking lot wasn't even included, right?
so we are proceeding along the approach that we're providing the base scope of work in the project. And then things like the parking lot upgrade, the playground, the playscape, and 3 or 4 other things will be add alternates to the
Okay.
project.
Okay.
That was the directive that was my understanding of the project direction.
That makes sense.
I mean, is this, I guess my question would be, is this parking in the parking lot meet the requirements of the building?
Yes, well, yes and no.
Well, if the alternate doesn't go, we're gonna identify street parking to make up the difference.
Well, in either scheme, you have to rely on street parking and communal parking to make up the difference.
As in the two adjacent churches, is that?
No, well, as in churches, as in the parking on the front, as in street parking, it
There's
really
a lot of parking on
shared.
Academy, you could do parallel parking there.
Yeah, I'll,
Anyway,
yeah,
not
we're
worried about it.
farther in the weeds than I'd like to go. Thank you, Tom. You have, what else do?
And a number of things. So maybe it's best to just address it from the perspective of, we've been working with Felicia's team regarding a lot of the things that are identified in this memo. I did read the memo. I'm aware of most of these issues. Most of the things that Felicia's pointing out make great sense. And we take no exception to trying to incorporate into the project. We just need direction from the building committee to do so, particularly a few of the major elements that are in here. One, the change to the mechanical system makes good sense, you know, for the community. We want to support the facilities department's recommendations. I don't think there's massive cost increase here. Long term, what they're recommending is a little more durable, provides more flexibility. Sort of, I don't want to say belt and suspenders, but provides assured heat to the building. I think that's fine. So we're a supporter of this approach. I just need the building committee to bless that approach and say, we would like you to proceed forward with this. I can't tell you that this particular system will cost significantly less or significantly more at this time. It's probably in the same ballpark. So there, in regards to that. There's a recommendation in here that we consider leaving the existing penthouse on the building. The building committee has already directed us to remove it. We were gonna use that area to put the DOAS and the rooftop units on, because that area has bearing walls directly underneath it. And it's also at the core of the roof, so it's easier to screen. If we leave the penthouse, then we have to move the mechanical units to the perimeter of the
Well,
building.
Tom, we were suggesting that you put the units within the penthouse and use the penthouse as your doghouse. Because we want to keep the stairs for roof access. And the fire marshal has blessed us keeping the stairs. Because it is far easier to get up to maintain units
If,
and the roof.
if we can
go
fit
up
the mechanical
staircase.
equipment in there
Yeah,
and do that, that's not completely unviable solution.
And I was one who was adamant about removing that because it's useless. It was useless as a public space. But if it's a mechanical space, that's fine. Now, we did at one point reject that idea of a mechanical space because the stairs are too narrow and to actually bring any equipment up. So you're still gonna have to lift and lift the equipment up or down. Well, you can bring a set of screwdrivers up there, but you're not bringing a compressor or anything that,
right, you have to lift units regardless with a crane, however, for long-term maintenance, especially for our people, it's much easier to get up there with whatever tool bags you need and filters for biannual changing if we can walk up the staircase.
And
But you're saying that
and then
roof on it?
the question would be, do we then, is there a cost to bringing everything into one space rather than having it distributed around the roof and what would be normally the most cost-effective location?
At this point, I can't even tell you if the equipment fits in there. So
Okay.
I don't have enough information to tell you it's a viable solution or not. It's an interesting idea. I don't take exception to exploring that idea.
Okay.
It's just a change of path.
But you put a roof back on it?
You keep
Well,
the
to-
existing room.
What?
The whole building's getting a new roof, so.
No, understood, but I'm saying, you're gonna demo the roof, put the pieces in and put the roof back on
We
it?
could possibly.
And then when a unit goes bad, we're gonna remove the roof to take the piece out with a crane?
Typically, how this works is you take a wall panel out. So yes, you would have to remove a portion of the wall to get the units in there. we're gonna have to repair the walls anyways, because we're not gonna leave the windows there, we're gonna have to put louvers there. Because all those rooftop units need a fair amount of air, so we would probably redesign the exterior of the penthouse to accommodate louvers, maybe on the north side of the building. We'd have to figure that out, but yes, 20 years from now, when the units are not so good, or 30 years from now, whatever the lifespan of the units are, you'd pull out the louver, those units would be craned off the roof. This is it's fairly typical in
You hope the new
schools,
unit's the same size as the one you took out?
So just to clarify, we're replacing all the rooftop units at the high school. What we're doing is completely removing the curbs in the doghouse and bringing those in with new units. This is standard practice. So
That's kind of what I'm saying. It's not atypical to put mechanical units in the building. Protects them, provides prolonged life. I'm not.
it's an existing historic
I'm
feature that
defending
can be
this
seen from the
approach
streetscape.
if it works. I mean, if it works, it works. We're willing to look into it. I'm not saying.
Well, currently, our estimate is demo and flat roof.
Right,
Right.
and then any rooftop units go where they go. Most-
And there's gonna be rooftop units outside the penthouse as well, more than likely. Again, this changes the approach mechanically, so that changes some of the decisions that have to be made architecturally. Changes the way ductwork would be distributed. It's a new approach. It's a modified new approach, so. I think it's worth looking at. Anyways, that's one of the bigger items on this list that needs to be addressed. The other thing that's partially on this list that also needs to be looked at, but I think has a bigger cost impact. is
One, like, quick question before we get off the topic of the roof. So as we make that assessment of where the mechanicals go in or outside, very, very early on, we talked about creating roof access from stairs inside the building rather than an access from outside for safety. I don't remember where that landed and what we designed in for roof access. So if we're going to change things and look at things, just make sure we look at how we access the roof, regardless of where mechanicals go.
Yeah, we were providing a roof access hatch and a ladder. It's certainly code compliant, but it's not as nice as a stair.
Internal, at least.
So,
You had one, you said you had one more that you,
yeah, so the other item is a lot of the things that facilities recommending is, masonry upgrades, interior upgrades, preserving some historic components. But the big item is essentially restoring the existing wood floors. We think this is a good idea, but the carpet that was put down over the wood floors has a hot mastic, and it may be actually more cost effective to restore those components and abate all that material than to just overlay and encapsulate. We can do both. There's no physical limitation to doing both. It's really just at the end of the day, updated cost impact or assessment from Payne Environmental or Fando, I'm sorry, and Kathleen Payne is working on it. So it's really, I think it's a great idea. Architecturally, we take no exception to it. It's just, what is the cost impact? We're also discovering that the building is deteriorating at a greater pace. There are a lot of interior plaster areas that may have to be removed. We're recommending where we remove them, we go back with the gypsum wallboard assembly, but that plaster is hot. So it's highly likely we're gonna be removing a lot more hot plaster from the building.
what do you mean by hot?
Meaning it has hazardous materials.
It sounds like
It does.
they were recommending the whole building be abated.
Well, that is a recommendation, but that would require a full gut renovation of the building to remove all the plaster. That's probably not a viable solution.
So there is encapsulation.
Is the plaster hot? Sorry, I didn't see it in the report.
It's-
Yeah, so,
Of that age building, they filled, I mean, there was a significant amount of asbestos
but,
added to plaster.
but
And
take-
drilling holes and sawing through it, and all the things you do when you do this will release.
Right.
Airborne.
So-
asbestos.
again, in regards to the facility department's recommendations, full abatement or removing anything that's easily removable is a sound recommendation, as opposed to encapsulating it. We take no exception to that approach. We do that in a lot of buildings, and in many cases, that doesn't mean removing all the plaster from a building or removing all the drywall from a building that has asbestos containing material in the compound. So it'll probably be a mix and match of approaches. But as it regards the floor assemblies, it's really just a cost issue. We would like to leave the wood floors. I don't think that's a bad solution. I just think at the end of the day, it may cost a little bit more. It may.
So you'd have to replace the wood floors.
No, we want to replace it. We'd probably sand and refinish, but that sanding has to be done within containment. So it's got to be done by the abatement
And then every
contractor.
time it would have to be sanded to be refinished with it,
Yeah.
then you'd have the same problem.
Well, in theory, again, there's two approaches. I don't know yet. I don't have enough
Okay.
information, but in theory, you could take enough material out that any asbestos that's leached into the wood could fully be removed. Or you would just take a little bit off and then you would refinish it, with basically encapsulate it with the floor finish. So in the future, if the floor had to be redone, it would have to be, if it had to be resanded, it'd have to be done as a container.
And when I mentioned in my chair comments, the difference between encapsulating and fully abating, it was the floors I was thinking of. Because the spaces between the floors, you'd have to go down, I don't know how far you'd have to go down, sand it down to get everything that's out of the spaces between the boards.
And yes, but again, that's speculation. In fairness to
Yes.
Felicia and Peter, I don't have enough information to really tell you, hey, it's gonna cost a lot more, or it's not. But their recommendations are sound. So, we are aware of these issues. We're evaluating them. Brian asked me to bring for those particular issues to your attention tonight. Of the 40, is it 40? I don't know.
Make it sound like a lot.
It's 20, it's 26. I'm giving. Felicia a hard time.
It starts and stops. The count starts over again.
Either way, the recommendations
So
are
it's
all good recommendations. I'm sounding a little hard. I just think there's a few things in here that I need direction from the committee, final direction. So I'm asking that you review this report and, maybe discuss it with Peter and Felicia and then make a formal recommendation so we can move forward one way or the other. I think some of these things, it's very difficult to cost quantify. My recommendation is if you decide these things are the smart way, the smart long-term solution for the community to pursue, I think we should just put them in the construction documents and then we'll find out what it costs at CD phase. Because we're gonna have to go through a cost reconciliation process anyways. So spending a month and a half trying to get to the bottom of whether this one is more expensive or this one makes sense, I don't think that's worth it. I think you should evaluate these improvements based on their veracity and their viability, and then just say, okay, we recommend you proceed with this. And when you read it, 90% of this is yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Tom, we have to know about cost changes. We have to. It's not, we've been nothing but, from the, you know, the very first, estimate, we've been over by millions of dollars. And to be able to say that we're not gonna care about costs now is,
I'm not saying that you don't care about cost. What I'm saying is that most of these changes are infrastructure changes. And when you look at them, you're gonna say, oh, that makes sense. And we should do that. And if it costs more at the impact of something else, then we still have to be cost conscious. But at the end of the CD phase, we're gonna get another hard estimate, and then we'll see where we are and we'll move back from it.
well, Tom, 2 weeks from now, we're gonna be voting on this, presumably, and if you don't wanna drag it out, then please have some up-down costs available for this, for pieces of this package. There are several packages there. Maybe you can do them together, you can do them one at a time, but,
That's a massive effort. I'm just telling you.
well,
Can
that's,
I just say, so.
but that's the world we're living in. We are living in a world where we don't have enough money to complete the project.
I guess the question is the types of changes that
Right.
are.
So as the author of the memo, who has a historic degree in preservation, a master's in historic preservation, who has worked on multiple commercial projects and sat at the cost estimating table, who currently also runs my own business that does historic renovations on residential projects, I can assure you, all of my recommendations in there are either cost savings or one-for-one swap outs. So to spend the effort of bringing in two cost consultants, paying them extra to do the line by line, I find to be not necessary. If in the professional opinion of myself, Peter, Tom's staff and all of that, we very much agree that these are probably insignificant one-for-one swaps, aside from the mechanical.
Felicia, you also told me that you weren't going to encapsulate anything more than already was. Whereas if we do the floors, if we keep the floors, if we don't pull them all out, we will be encapsulating asbestos from the mastic that holds them in place. And Tom just told us that.
No, sorry, you're misunderstanding. The original floors are on clean substrate. The
Right.
original floors are clean. If we get down to the original floor layer, we are fully clean. If you put carpet tile on top of that and do not strip down to the original floor layer, that is encapsulating. That means anytime there is a water leak, anytime we need to do modifications to that, we are white gloving them. We are encapsulating all of that. So I am not saying that you are encapsulating things. I'm saying that you are going back to clean materials for forever future of this building.
So then there's no keeping the original floors is not an option.
Yes, it is.
That's what Tom just told me.
What I was saying was that the wood floors are there. The substrate below the wood floors is original and is in good shape. On top of the existing wood floors, they put down a recovery board and then they put down carpet. And that recovery board and carpet have glue that is, asbestos containing. So when you take the carpet off and you take any recovery board off, the wood floors have to be sanded, but there's glue that had adhered to the top of the existing wood floor.
Yes.
So that glue has to be sanded off, the floors have to be refinished. That has to be done under containment. Once that's done, there are two options. One, you can sand it down far enough, hopefully, that you remove all of the remnants of the glue, and then you finish it. Or you sand it down enough and you seal it, and the sealant acts as an encapsulation. So
It's my professional opinion that if you pass it over with a clean sander like you do any refinishing, down to 2 coats, you are getting rid of absolutely all of that glue that could be on that in a traceable amount that would be governed by the EPA standards. It's not a monolithic glue. It's not like they self-leveled the glue. They just caulked it on and it'll mostly rip up. And then what doesn't rip up with removing that top layer of substrate will come off when you sand up the varnish.
So they
now
put the glue on top of the varnish.
So you have your original subfloor, you have your original wood on top of that, right? Then on top of that, and then you have your finish, right, which is fairly strong finish, especially back in the day. That was
Right, that's,
multiple coats of shellac, right? So it's, all of those cracks in those boards are sealed. It is very tight grained wood, it is very tight grained cracks, it's hunting proof, it is very tight. So there's no like big cracks for it to seep into. On top of that, sometime in probably the 50s, they put on a very cheap plywood substrate, and then they laid the carpet over the top. The thing that is holding that plywood substrate to the original floor, that is what is asbestos containing caulk. So when that subfloor comes up, once that caulk comes off on the subfloor, the bits that remain on the finish of the flooring will be sanded off when you're refinishing the flooring, and that will get you down to clean material for the remainder of the lifespan of that floor. And with floors of that, you know, grain and thickness and vintage, very good floors, you could probably refinish that 10 times before you get to a thickness that you can no longer use those floors. So for the 100-year lifespan of this building, you're getting clean material with material that already exists for probably the same costs what it would be to put a layer on top of it and encase it, in case you're messing with door frames, you're messing with baseboard heights, you're adjusting all of those to accommodate for the extra thick layer that you have to encase. And then you have the added problem where if it ever floods, if you ever need to go through the floor, you now have to encapsulate that area and treat it as hot.
But
That is the
that's not,
recommendation.
but that's not the option is to take the wood floors up and put, a tile floor, some other. That is the current, that is the current,
Not
design.
encapsulating.
No, what was in our design? What kind of flooring were you proposing?
We were putting an LVT, over.
Over.
So
Over,
removing
take
the carpet, so we were removing the carpet, prepping the substrate and putting an LVT
So no
down.
abatement.
No, it was an encapsulate, essentially an encapsulation.
But once you're gonna take the wood up,
No.
No,
That
you
was
put
never
something
in the
over the
design.
top.
that
of
wasn't
it.
in the.
That's what I'm saying, you have a gorgeous, historically accurate, clean material that you can get back to for the same amount that it would be to encapsulate it with a cheaply made material that will have to be replaced in 20 years.
Maybe,
But
maybe.
But anyway, so the cost is getting the demo or the asbestos contractor to get rid of the asbestos, sand the floors, and then a certain percentage of the wood floor is probably damaged, needs to be replaced and refinished. So I mean, that's kind of what the cost we're looking at, right, Carl?
Mhm.
In a nutshell. Compared to putting laminate flooring over the top of the floors there.
so,
Do I think it's a good idea? Yes, I do.
I think everyone would
it's
love it.
worth pursuing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody would like,
I think
nobody would
I
like
think
to
it's
say
great.
there's asbestos encapsulated under it, and if there's not, and this actually sounds like a better solution. For some reason, I thought the wood floor was coming up,
Yeah, I get it.
and we're gonna get, matter of fact, I mean, John, when we talked about what wasn't going to be finished, said, well, it's gonna be, cement, it's gonna be, it's gonna be cement, it's gonna be scored to get all the last of the asbestos mastic up, and there'll be, that's what it'll look like. He didn't say it was gonna look like wood floors.
So,
the cement is in the lower level and also the back 1936 area of the building. The rest of the 1920 building is wood substrate, there's no cement.
alright, so we evaluate the floors to make sure they haven't already been finished. Multiple
5
times.
times.
Yeah, and they're down to nails almost. We may have to evaluate the condition of the wood floors underneath, right? Unless Felicia,
Well,
your
can-
team's already done that, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, where we were able to find them and where we can see it sawn off, where it meets an existing edge, they're
Yeah.
thick and in really good shape, and there's also a lot of areas throughout the building with it existing that are being converted into different areas or stripped that you could salvage that and use it to patch it.
You don't know water damage like those areas now.
Well, that's what she's saying, they've got other material you can probably patch it, but we
But
don't know how
the
much.
reality is that the water damage work, the things that we discover throughout the process is contingent work. We
Yeah.
try and identify as much as we can, but you
You don't
can
know.
only tear so much of the
I know.
building apart. And it's a renovation project, so we're gonna discover a lot of things we're not unfortunately happy about, so. So I do recommend that solution, I just.
I think we
like
need the
the
reports,
committee
we
to
look at
review
the
it.
26 things, Joe.
Pardon?
We need the reports, we
Yeah.
look at the 26 things.
39. It's
Um,
actually 39, it's not 40.
I'm sorry. There was one last thing I had. One of the things the committee asked me to do was to get a proposal to
We
do a
appreciate that.
feasibility study of the stage. I choked when I talked to my next stage consultant because I told him that, you know, we allocated some money to renovate the stage as an allowance. And he's like, oh, really? You could spend triple that. And I was like, what? But in fairness to him, he gave me a proposal of $97.50 to do the study, and we would run that through our contract. You know, I think we're gonna have to be. He's gonna look at the stage and make recommendations about what it could be viably used for and what we would likely see on a stage of that nature. And then what types of equipment would be realistic to provide.
Well, that's kind of what we asked, right, the last
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Is
We
there,
asked for viability. and-
I know, we also had to keep digging for some options, I don't know if that's included in the proposal, like,
But
You
yeah,
guys have
good,
to-
better, best, you know, level of.
yeah, I think realistically, you're gonna get, you know, what they recommend and then some potential options, one way or the other. Because good, better, best, I mean,
You're not gonna, it's not gonna be best.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's not
that's
gonna be-
millions
It
upon millions
also,
of dollars.
it also didn't include lighting or acoustics, I think, that's not, right, that would be somebody else.
No, there's adjustable
Right.
acoustic curtains and banners in
Oh,
there.
I thought there was a caveat in there that.
well, no,
Separate.
they will do a feasibility, this is really just for the feasibility
Yeah,
study, so they're not
right.
designing the lighting
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
acoustics, but they would give us ROM and what we would wanna budget for that type of.
Right.
The last meeting, Joe, we asked
Yeah,
Tom
I-
to look
I-
into it.
I think I watched the film. The last meeting.
And that way there, this isn't necessary, this gives us numbers to work with, whether we remove it completely and try to fundraise, whether we do something completely different. This gives us an idea of what the costs are and
And what can be done.
what can be done. Right, and I think the big thing about this piece is getting infrastructure in while the building's open, not necessarily all the other pieces, but the things you need to have solid, to be able to put up a light. So maybe the lights aren't included and the sound equipment's not included and other things, but running electricity to those spots to allow for those things to be there is, you know, that's the baseline that we're looking for. And then the understanding of what we're talking about cost-wise. I mean, you can spend millions on lights alone, or you can say what group, you know, or say, this is the theater, you bring in your own lights if you're a theater team or whatever.
Hey,
John?
Tom?
Hey, John.
It appears that the scope of the project is again limited down to just the gymnasium stage. Was that intentional or an omission?
No, that was intentional, because the other stage, we're still deciding whether it's gonna stay or be replaced. And, that stage is just a platform either way. It's not in a situation where we're designing a whole new proscenium or changing the shape of the space. That stage doesn't have the capacity of the other stage. So, this study is focused on the.
So you've made that decision then? Because that wasn't my understanding of the outcome of the discussions of this committee.
We were trying to figure out what would be able to be done with the two spaces, I thought was the last one.
Hmm,
Yeah,
Well,
we're
then
supposed to do a whole separate conversation about the stages.
okay, well then I'll have to go back and revise the proposal. I apologize. I'll get that updated.
With an understanding that that will be a small
I'll get the proposal updated.
Thank you.
That's the end of my update.
Thank you,
Tom?
Tom. Any questions for Tom while we?
You haven't given me any questions?
I think we drilled.
I usually don't have to ask the group, the private group to do questions. I think we've come to the end of the committee business, and we're down to public comment. But I guess that's only one public comment. Is there, and so I don't believe there's anything else that we have to address.
Unless somebody's online.
Right. That, so now, Jeannie, is there anyone online? We'll go to public comment.
Just Austin,
Pardon?
just Austin Hall.
He could have been part of the.
Gesture.
Okay.
You chose not to. Does, Austin, do you have any comment at this point? Can you hear me?
He can hear you, we just can't see it.
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Austin.
Thanks, Austin.
Okay, no further business. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
All right.